Welcome to Knife Thoughts. This video is going to be on this knife, and this is the Spyderco Spydercard. And so this is a knife that my uncle gave me. He found this at actually a local gun store, and it's a pretty surprising find to find at a local gun store here in a small town in Pennsylvania, because this Spydercard is a pretty kind of rare and interesting, kind of different, mysterious knife that is a little bit famous within Spyderco collectors. And so as you might be able to tell from the box, if you're familiar with Spyderco, this is an older knife. So I'll show you the label here. You can see it is the Spydercard SC01PS and the combo edge. And you can see the date here, 1/15/01. So this knife is just over 23 years old. You can see this old style Spyderco box and the warranty card in there. So it's a really cool find and really was an unexpected and very cool gift to get from my uncle. Now, real quick, it's also really special to me because my uncle carrying a Spyderco is really a large part of what got me into knives. My uncle carried a Spyderco Police, the classic stainless steel version, when I was, a kid. And I always thought it was really cool, that really, big knife. I have the newer lightweight version, but this big, long, really kind of aggressive looking knife, you might say, especially in the stainless steel version, was always very interesting to me when I was younger, and it kind of sparked my interest in knives. So it's really cool to get this this gift from my uncle, and especially because it is such an interesting knife. So as you can see, this is basically a credit card knife, and it's often said to be the first credit card knife. I've seen post that Sal Glesser, the owner and a designer for Spyderco, the founder of Spyderco, has said that this was the first credit card knife. Now, I don't know if there were, other credit card knives before this, but it certainly is an early attempt at a credit card knife. And it's a pretty interesting and cool attempt. It's different than some others you see. So I have had the Victorinox Swiss card, which is a little bit of a different style. The knife comes out of the card rather than actually being the card. But there have been other ones like this also. Now, it is the size of a credit card in this rectangle here, but then it's about the width of 4 credit cards. So it's not the thinnest possible thing. You could definitely fit it in a wallet, though. I actually have put this in my wallet. Now, this is a knife that I just really appreciate for the sentimental value, for the kind of history of it, the uniqueness of it. So it's not a knife that I'm going to use real hard. But I did, check to see if it would fit in my wallet, and I actually use a duct tape wallet that my wife made for me recently because my wallet was kind of wearing out. And it fits fine in that. It doesn't really fit in the Lynch leather wallet that I often use also. So it just is going to depend on your wallet if it will actually fit in there. But it is, generally the size of a credit card, just a little bit thick. But then you open it here with the classic thumb hole. And the shape of the handle, it's not the easiest to get a hold on that thumb stud. I'm sorry, not thumb stud, thumb hole, because there's just nothing really to hold on to on the back. So you just kind of have to position it in your hand so that your fingers are on the back of the handle there, and then you can open it relatively easily. But it does take some getting used to. It opens pretty nicely. I was actually really impressed with how smooth it is. It's not going to be drop close smooth like you often want on a knife now, or people expect on a knife now. It is definitely not going to be that, and it's not really flickable. There's just not really a great way to flick this knife open. You're going to slow roll it or thumb roll it, whatever you want to call it. Now, as you can see, once this knife is open, it's a very strange shape, and that's because it's a shape of a credit card when it's closed. So you've got this really big rounded corner for a thumb ramp. And then, you can use this area here to kind of get a hold on with, for me, my middle and ring fingers. And, you got yourself kind of a knife handle there. So it's a pretty strange grip. I don't think that you would want this to probably be your main knife, the knife that you're going to do a whole bunch of cutting cardboard with, because this area here is going to stick into your hand a little bit. Maybe this area here also, unless your pinky drops off the edge. Or you could pinch it like this, but even when pinching it like this corner here is kind of right into the meat of your hand. So it's not the most ergonomic knife in the world, but that's not really what this is for. It's not meant to be, a utility knife that you're using all day, every day at work. This is a backup knife, a knife that you can carry in your wallet and be pretty unobtrusive, have it when you might need a knife and might not have one in your pocket, might not have one that's more obvious or something along those lines. And it does a good job of that. So again, you can close it with this interesting feature here. So this is basically a frame lock. As you can see, it is part of the handle. This stainless steel handle is what forms the lock, and you can see that it interfaces with the blade tang there, but it's not on the edge of the knife like a typical frame lock. It's within. And Spyderco has another knife. It's not the dog tag, but round head, square head, something like that, that has a similar lock to it. But because of that, you have this hole here that you press, and that can allow you to unlock it. So open it and then press, which unlocks it. And I have always used my thumb to close it like so. Now, the blade, as you can see, has a straight edge, and it's kind of an, again, very interesting, almost triangular type blade shape, but it has this combination blade, which I think this is probably my only combination edge blade where there is the serrated and a plain edge. But from what I have read online, this seems to have been the more popular version because you get these serrations that are going to cut even if you haven't sharpened it super recently. And so as a backup knife, it kind of makes sense to have that combination edge. So I think this was probably the more popular version. Now you can see that this is in AUS or AUS 6 steel. Even at the time, it wasn't really a super steel. It's probably equivalent or close to equivalent to 440A steel from what I can find. So it's not a super high-end steel, and certainly isn't now. But again, this is not something that even at the time I think was conceptualized as a knife that you're going to be using for all of your cutting. So it doesn't matter quite as much that you have a really high-end steel, a steel that's going to hold its edge super long, because this is more of a backup knife. Now, one thing I was kind of surprised about is, aside from having, pretty smooth action, even though it's not flickable and, drop closed, it doesn't have any blade play. And one thing that I really like that Spyderco still does sometimes is riveting their knives. A well done, a well dialed in riveted knife is just not going to loosen. So you can use this knife pretty much as hard as you want, and the pivot will not loosen because it is riveted. And that's true for, all these other screws also. Well, not screws, but rivets. So I do like that, and it makes it so it's very low maintenance. You can't take this knife apart. You can't adjust this knife. It is what it is. Now, another interesting thing about this knife is that, as you can see, it is integral. And so what that means is that the handle is all one piece. And now that is something that bumps the price of a knife up by a lot. An integral titanium handled knife can be really, really expensive because it is milled out usually. Now, because this is stainless steel, I believe that these were bent. These were actually bent into this shape. And there's a little, if I can get it to focus, a little crack actually in the steel right here. Now, I don't think that's going to get worse. I'm not worried about it because, again, this is more of a sentimental piece than a user piece. But it is, something that probably comes from the fact that it's bent over. Now, another interesting thing about this knife is its kind of history. So This is coming, what I'm saying here, you know, I don't know that it's 100% true, but it's coming directly from posts that I have read from Sal Glasser. And so this knife is designed by someone named Edward Brachinsky. I don't know that I'm pronouncing that correctly, but he designed this knife and the Shabaria, which is a really cool kind of Middle Eastern inspired knife that Spyderco has done a couple times. They did a sprint run of it recently, I believe. And he was an Russian Israeli and was actually killed. And in, you know, Sal Glasser's post, he said by Hamas, and, you know, again, just going off of his post, and the car was burned. So he was actually, according to Sal Glasser, identified because he had the prototypes of this, the Spydercard and the Shabaria, with him, and the steel didn't burn. Now, I've also seen it said that it was also from dental records, which, you know, would be more typical. But either way, it's kind of gives a little bit of, I don't know, mystique to these knives in that they might have played a part in, you know, identifying him. So kind of a sad history. Well, not kind of, definitely a sad history, and but definitely an interesting aspect to this knife. So again, really cool knife. I don't know how much my uncle paid for this. I hope he didn't pay too much, because I know that these can get pretty expensive. So I really appreciate it. It's something that I've really enjoyed having in my collection. I have a few old Spydercos, and this is one that I'm really happy to have along with those. Just a really interesting, unique, kind of ahead of its time piece that I really love and really appreciate having gotten from my uncle. So this is the Spyderco Spydercard. And if you've enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up. You can leave any comments below. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, click the bell and select all so you know when I post new videos. Check out my website, knifethoughts.com, and subscribe by email so you know when I post new articles on knives like this and knife-related topics. And last but not least, as always, don't forget to go out and do good.